We've got the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, Mel Stride, joining us now. Good to see you this morning. Can I ask first about this MOD breach of security? Because this is hugely worrying, isn't it? You've got to ask, how was this able to happen?
Well, that and many other questions are questions that are going to need to be asked here. The Defence Secretary will be making a full statement to Parliament later today and no doubt addressing some of those issues. But let me just say now that this is a third-party data set that appears to have been compromised. That has been shut down immediately by the Ministry of Defence in terms of external access to it. And, of course, they're providing support and advice to those who may have been impacted. But we really need, I think, to wait until we have Grant Shapps' statement later today to find out more.
OK, but irrespective of perhaps that statement, can you give your own view on whether or not we are taking a tough enough stance with China? We've had a number of cyber attacks this year. We've had this clear and persistent pattern coming from China. We've had two charged with espionage under the auspices of Chinese intervention. Are we doing enough?
Well, we don't know at this stage, and it may be that Grant Shapps has more to say later on this, whether this is China or another state actor. It does appear, I think, at this stage to be some kind of state actor, but let's wait to find out what we hear. That as to China, we've made it very clear in our defence review, in the refresh of that review, that China remains, I think we've defined them as an epoch-making challenge to the UK in terms of economic security, and that's why obviously we've taken action in the past in terms of getting Huawei's hardware out of parts of our infrastructure here in the UK, and also interventions in terms of energy security as well. So we do take this very seriously, but at the end of the day also, they are a very important economic partner, and we have global challenges like climate change that we need to engage with China in order to address.
All right, we're at the beginning of a new week here, technically, in terms of politics. How does the government and the Tory party pick themselves up and move themselves forward towards a general election, whenever that might be, with any degree of confidence, especially after the Prime Minister said yesterday, it looks like we're not even going to be the biggest party in the next government, in the next Parliament?
Well, there are all sorts of kind of predictions that one can make based on the local elections. My observations would be that this was a difficult time for the Conservative Party. There's no doubt about that at all, and there's no point in ducking that. But at the same time, they are very low turnout elections. The electorate, as we know, is very volatile. And I think there are elements of evidence that whilst people may be disgruntled with us at the moment, and we have to do some work there, and perhaps I can come on to that, that people are not naturally necessarily beating a path with great enthusiasm to Labour's door. So I do think there's more to play for here than some are suggesting. In terms of what we've got to do, we've got to continue to focus really firmly on those things that matter to the British people, and the Prime Minister has set those out in terms of getting inflation down, real wages now growing for each of the last 9 months. We've cut taxes, national insurance actually down by a third, so at an average salary is saving £900 per year. Those are things. But the second thing we've got to do is we've got to be facing outward, not inward. And we've got to be united as a party. And I think that's something that you're going to see going forward now.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, why don't you just put it all to the test and call a general election? I mean, the Lib Dems today have said they're going to table a motion of no confidence in the government, and they think that there should be a general election in June. Why would you resist against that?
Well, these are decisions that are for the Prime Minister, and that is the convention, and that's the case no matter which party is in power at the time. So, yes, of course, the Lib Dems can table their motion, and I would be very surprised if it gets anywhere. But it's for the Prime Minister to decide. He suggested probably the autumn, and I think that's looking the most likely scenario at the moment.
Yeah, but the idea of running and hiding, which is how it comes across now when things seem so desperate, are things really going to change that dramatically in the next couple of months? I mean, realistically, does anyone think that? You must know that your colleagues are saying, when they're not sat in front of a microphone or a camera, because we've all talked to them, saying, well, time is up now.
So I think things are changing. I mean, if you look at cost of living, we have seen a turnaround in the economy. We've seen inflation down from 11.1 to 3.2%. We've seen real wages increasing, taxes beginning to fall. On the boats issue and illegal migration, we've seen the Rwanda legislation go through. We're already seeing the deterrent effect of that, incidentally, with people now leaving the UK as a consequence of that legislation. We're seeing waiting lists in the NHS falling by 200,000 since September of last year. So we are seeing progress. There is more time between now and the next general election. I think it was Harold Wilson who said a week is a long time in politics. We have several months now before the next general election.
The Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, says you're gaslighting the British public with the way you're describing the economy, and that if we vote for the Conservatives again at a general election, it'll be 5 years more of the same. Chaos or stability would be the choice if they voted for Labour. You're gaslighting us.
No, not at all. What we're saying is exactly as I've set out. We are seeing an improving economic situation. We are seeing a gradual but sustained improvement in those cost of living pressures and inflation, real wages going up, taxes coming down. We're seeing all that good stuff happening. What we're going to get with Labour, who have all these uncosted commitments, they're 28 billion that they were going to be putting into energy that they seem to have U-turned on, but the policy yet still remains, are examples of where we can really are in danger, I think, of going back to square one with Labour, because they have no plan at the end of the day. So I think it's all very well for Rachel Reeves to make these comments, but she's overlooking, firstly, the progress, clear progress that we are making and will continue to make, and also, I think, rather gaslighting where Labour are at the moment, which is that they don't have a plan. They're not telling us enough of the detail. We know what they've done in the past when they've been in government, which is to borrow too much and to get into problems and difficulties.
All right, forgive me, but we hear a lot about the plan, and the Prime Minister keeps saying, well, they haven't got a plan, we've got a plan. We don't really seem to be very clear, to be perfectly honest, on what that plan is and what it is actually, in real terms, in our pockets, in our homes, delivering for us.
So, well, I think I've set some of this out. So cost of living, for example, is very much part of our plan. We want to ease the pressures there. The Prime Minister about a year ago said the plan is to halve inflation in the year. We beat that target.
Governments
so that is part of the plan,
inflation themselves.
as is getting tax down.
Yeah, but forgive me, the idea of saying our plan is that we want things to be better isn't very strong, is it?
No, look, I think people do care that price rises have now fallen very dramatically in terms of inflation. In terms of whether the government had anything to do with that, well, of course we did. We have an accommodative fiscal policy alongside the monetary policy of the Bank of England. We, for example, had to resist a lot of public sector wage pressure in order to make sure that we got inflation down. There were active things that we had to do.
We have to say goodbye. We really appreciate your time this morning, Mel Stride, Department of Work and Pensions. Thank you.